What is up, guys? So as of right now, the Arrowverse is made up of 4 different live-action TV shows. That's Arrow, The Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow, not including Black Lightning because that's not been confirmed to be in the Arrowverse just yet, and until they cross over with each other, the Arrowverse and Black Lightning, then it's not in the Arrowverse. Speaking of crossovers, later this year in December 2018, there will be a crossover that will feature Gotham City and Batwoman, which will lead to the spin-off show of Batwoman. And with the announcement of that like a week ago, it got me thinking that the Arrowverse could use a couple more spin-off shows, and in this video I'll go over the 5 Arrowverse characters / teams that I think could make good spin-off shows for the Arrowverse. I'm only going to go over characters who have appeared and already established characters, so characters like Batman who have been mentioned. Well, not Batman, but Bruce Wayne has been mentioned. I won't go over him in this video because he hasn't actually appeared. Also, won't be going over non-established teams like the Justice League or the Teen Titans, because I would love a Justice League TV show starring all the characters from the Flash, Arrow, and all those other shows, but I'm not going to go over that in this video because they have not been established as a team yet, so I'm not going to go over that in this video. It's only 5, it's really 4 characters and then 1 team, which I think would make great spin-off shows from the Arrowverse. Without further ado, let's get into the top 5 Arrowverse characters that deserve spin-off shows, starting with number 5. Number 5 is Martian Manhunter, spinning off from Supergirl, he is not the first character or team actually to spin off from Supergirl, because Supergirl is a show where the main character sometimes gets overshadowed by her supporting characters, which happens a lot, and there are a lot of supporting characters on that show that would be more fitting for their own shows than on Supergirl, so I would love to see those characters get spin-off shows. First of those characters is Martian Manhunter, who is a series regular on all 3 seasons of Supergirl and the 4th season as well. And for the first 3 seasons, he wasn't really used well, at all. He was more of a sidekick to Supergirl, which, if you really think about it, makes 0 sense because he's more experienced and he's just as, if not even a little bit more powerful than her. Because of that, it makes no sense for him to be the side character or the sidekick to her. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But Martian Manhunter, another thing they didn't do right is the fact that he's every single chance he gets to turn back into his human form, he does, which is something that really infuriates me about his character. So if they do make a Martian Manhunter spin-off show, which I think they should, if they do, I would love it for them to compress the episodes so they have more budget per episode, so that they could put more into his CGI, so it could be in his Martian form more often, so they can focus on the more interesting side of him, which is his Martian side. It's what makes him Martian Manhunter, so it's just a lot more interesting. And some villains that they can use for the show are Malefic, which is his brother, as well as Mr. Bones. I think something interesting they could do with Mr. Bones, who, by the way, he's the head of the DEO in the comics. Something interesting they could do with that is, since Martian Manhunter left the DEO in Season 3, spoiler alert, they could just make Mr. Bones take over the DEO and have the DEO go rogue and go against aliens like Martian Manhunter. So that could be a really good idea for Season 1 with Mr. Bones as the main villain. And then in Season 2, Malefic could be the main villain, and then so on and so forth. There are not a lot of Martian Manhunter villains, but there are so many aliens in the DC universe they could just pull from other characters, villains, rogues galleries, and especially more minor characters. But Martian Manhunter does have a couple main villains that he could use for his show, so I think this is a great idea for a spin-off show for the Arrowverse. Number 4 is a character who I definitely think that a lot of people will disagree with. I think a lot of people will not agree with this slot, and that's because this is a controversial character from the Flash Season 4, and that's the Elongated Man, aka Ralph Dibny. I loved his character in Season 4. I get why people disliked him, just because he took up a lot of screen time, especially from characters like Cisco and Caitlin and Joe, who got nothing at all to do in Season 4, and I definitely agree with that, but I don't think that hurt him as a character. I think it benefited him as a character, but it hurt other characters like Caitlin, Cisco, and Joe, who at this point in Season 5, going into Season 5, they don't feel like characters anymore. They just feel like they're there because they were there since the beginning, and that's what Season 4 did to them. But I don't think Ralph Dibny is responsible for that. I mean, he's not a real person, obviously, but I think that the main reason for that is because they focused on him rather than them, which, again, benefited him as a character. The main reason I think he could hold his own show, and the main reason I think he's the first character the Flash has ever introduced who I think could hold his own show, is because Hartley Sawyer, the actor who plays him, is honestly a really great actor. Whenever given the chance in the Flash Season 4, he really showed his acting chops, like in the first episode he was ever introduced in the argument scene between him and Barry, which from that scene alone made me really like him as a character, and throughout the season I really liked him even more because he's honestly a really compelling character in my opinion, and he's a great actor as well. His powers are really cool to see, but maybe they were a little underused in The Flash Season 4, which is something I think they can course correct in a possible spin-off show, because they wouldn't have to put any budget into characters like the Flash, Vibe, and Killer Frost, and the villains. Maybe definitely the villains, but not the side characters. And they could just put all their superhero budget, I guess, into Elongated Man, so they could do some really creative stuff with his powers. Something I would love to see in a future season of the Flash as well. If he's not getting a spin-off show, which, let's be honest, he probably won't. But if he does, then I would love to see that as well. I just think he's a really great character. I get why people don't like him just because he took up a lot of screen time, but I think if he just became his own spinoff, he got his own spinoff show, it would be better for both the Flash character. For people who like him, it would be better because he's getting his own show. People who don't like him, it would be better as well because they could just watch the Flash without him as well. I think it's a great idea, and I think like characters that could be on the show are his wife, Sue Dibney, who would be the main love interest in the show. Villains, they could just pull characters from anywhere, especially Plastic Man villains. I think they could use a lot of Plastic Man aspects. They already have, like, they made him a sort of villain, or not a villain, but like a criminal. They did make him a criminal on the show in his past, which is something that Plastic Man was. They gave him the shape-shifting abilities, which Elongated Man was never able to do in the comics. Plastic Man was, so they definitely used a lot of aspects of Plastic Man, so they could just take some of his villains. Hell, Plastic Man himself could be a villain on the show, but then become a hero, which is what he did in the comics. So I think Elongated Man is honestly a really great idea for a spin-off show from The Flash. Number 3, and the second TV show to spin off from Supergirl on this list, is the Legion of Superheroes, or how I would call them in this video, the Legion, because it's just so much easier to say, and they are the only team on this list as well. The Legion of Superheroes were introduced in Supergirl Season 3 after Mon-El was introduced in Supergirl Season 2, and at the end of Season 2, he went to the future, which then I predicted. I don't know if I made a video about it, but I predicted that he's going to be a member of the Legion of Superheroes afterwards, and he did. He came back with the Legion with Saturn Girl and Brainiac 5, and those characters, I don't think any of them on their own would not be able to hold a show, but as a team, I think they definitely would. Mon-El is actually a pretty great character in my opinion. I think he may be able to hold a TV show on his own, but with a team, I think it would make a great team. Brainiac 5 was a pretty great character in Supergirl Season 3 in my opinion, and I mean, he didn't look right. He looked a little weird because he was blue instead of green, but I think other than that, he was actually a really great version of that character. Saturn Girl didn't get much to do, but I think she could become a pretty great character if she returned in a possible Supergirl spin-off show of the Legion of Superheroes. And something that Supergirl Season 3 set up so nicely is the first season of the Legion of Superheroes, a possible season where Brainiac is the main villain, because in the Supergirl Season 3 finale, Brainiac 5 returned to this time, to 2018, because AIs were really in danger in the future, because he said his evil relative, and that's obviously Brainiac, because he's Brainiac 5, that's Brainiac, is around in the future terrorizing the universe. So I think that could be a very good idea for our first season of Legion of Superheroes with Brainiac as the main villain. Maybe Brainiac 5 won't appear in that season, maybe just till the end, and that makes sense. But I think Mon-El and Saturn Girl, and apparently Windshot is also in the future as well, and then they could introduce the rest of the Legion. Like, they've already mentioned Lightning Lass and Chameleon, but they could also bring Lightning Lad, Cosmic Boy, and all those other characters who are members of the Legion of Superheroes in the comics, and it could make for a pretty good superhero team TV show with Brainiac as the main villain of the first season. Other main villains they could use are the Emerald Empress and the Fatal Five. Then there's also Superboy Prime, Imperiax, and other characters. They can't do the Blight because they already dealt with that. Apparently, like, in this universe, they came from Pestilence, and they killed Pestilence. So they can't do that, I guess. I mean, they can with other time travel things, but I think that Season 1 should be Brainiac 5, Season 2 could be the Fatal 5, and then from then they could do whatever they want with the characters from the comics, and maybe even original characters as well. But I think the Legion of Superheroes starring Mon-El would be a great TV show, and a great spin-off show for the Arrowverse. Number 2 is a TV show that I'm sure a lot of you guys would put at number 1 instead of number 2, but I would as well, if not for who is at number 1, which I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know already. But Deathstroke is a TV show I would love to see spinning off from Arrow. The reason I would love to see this is because, one, Manu Bennett would 100% carry the show. Like, he's such a good actor, he could definitely hold his own show as Deathstroke. And 2 is that the Season 6, his departure from the show, from Arrow, perfectly set up a TV show where in Season 6 he found his son, and they had this whole dispute, and they kind of fought, and then the way he and Oliver parted ways just perfectly set up a TV show for Deathstroke, apart from Arrow up until season 6. Up until that point, he wasn't really separate from Oliver Queen. They were really interconnected. Their storylines were interconnected. But after that point, they separated, and Deathstroke could have his own storyline and his own spin-off show with that storyline. And that storyline would be him reconnecting with his family, with Joe and his wife Adeline, and maybe Grant Wilson, although Grant Wilson is like 40 years old in 2046, so he's probably like 10 in 2018, I think. So maybe, who knows, maybe Grant Wilson is a 10-year-old here and Deathstroke could reconnect with him as well. But I think Deathstroke as a TV show would be a great idea. As for villains, I don't really know what they would do there. I mean, he is an anti-hero and he doesn't really have any villains in the comics, but I'm sure they could come up with something. I mean, it's not going to be that difficult. Really, his only enemies in the comics are superheroes, so yeah, that'll be weird to root for the villain in that case. But he's not a villain at this point. He's an anti-hero, so he wouldn't fight heroes. He would fight other villains, maybe people who are looking to tear the family, to kill his family. I'm not really sure what they would do there. But the reason I would love to see this show, other than the reason I just mentioned, is because it would be so brutal. And if it was on the DC universe, that would fit so perfectly, because we saw how brutal and dark Titans is, and that does not fit those characters, but I think it 100% fits Deathstroke. So if the Arrowverse had some spin-off shows on the DC Universe streaming service, I think Deathstroke would be the first pick, because it could be so brutal and so dark, and it would fit the character so well. As we saw from the season 6, his second to last episode, I think, or his last episode, no, it's definitely the second last. Yeah, this incredibly brutal fight scene, and imagine how brutal and incredible the fight scenes can get, where they can go above and beyond what they did in Arrow Season 6, and to do what they're doing in Titans, which again doesn't fit those characters, but will 100% fit Deathstroke, and Deathstroke is an incredible idea for an Arrowverse spinoff show. And number 1, I'm sure a lot of you guys saw this coming, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys don't put this at number 1, and will put this at number 2, probably behind Deathstroke, but number 1 for me is Superman. Superman appeared for the first time in Supergirl Season 2, Episode 1, or that's the first time he was shown with a face. He was like CGI, and it was like behind, he was like cropped out of the screen in past episodes in Season 1, but Supergirl Season 2, Episode 1 was the first time we saw him completely, and whenever he appeared in that episode, that's when I got interested in the show. Like, I just rewatched those episodes because I wanted to see if he was as good as I remember, and whenever it cut away from Superman, whenever Superman wasn't there, I completely lost interest in what was happening, so I just skipped past that, which is something which sucks for that show. But, I mean, one thing they did incredibly well is this character. And because of that, Tyler Hoechlin, the guy who plays Superman on Supergirl, is honestly my favorite live-action Superman, and not only in TV, but also in movie as well. Like, in media in general, this version of Superman, this is the best live-action version of Superman, in my opinion, and because of that, I would love to see a TV show with him, and I've said that in a lot of videos up until now, but I would much rather see a TV show with Tyler Hoechlin Superman than Supergirl. I think that would make a much better TV show. I mean, Supergirl as a character cannot compare to Superman, because he's Superman. It's crazy that such a huge DC character, and such a huge character in general, is such a minor character in the Arrowverse. Superman is like the front and center of most DC universes, along with Batman, but the Arrowverse, he's just not. He's in the background, which kind of sucks, and I think because of that, because he's such a great version of the character, he would make an incredible TV show, or not he, like, the TV show would be super good. And some villains they could use, some characters that were already mentioned, like Lex Luthor or Zod or Brainiac, or characters that have not been mentioned, like Mongol or Darkseid, or although Superman did mention that he was on World, so they could do something with that as well. Characters that have already appeared already, like Parasite or Metallo, they could use those characters as well, even though I think they are both dead. But I mean, they could definitely just make this TV show in the past. Tyler Hoechlin does look young enough to be like a 25-year-old Superman. They did mention how they age slower. They could just do him in the past, like a prequel to Supergirl. I would love to see that as well, or maybe a sequel. I don't know, or just a spin-off in general. I would love to see this character in the spotlight. I would love to see this character have his own TV show. Some side characters they could use are just all the side characters that Superman has in the comics, like Lois Lane as the main love interest, Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, although Jimmy Olsen is on Supergirl, Emil Hamilton, Supergirl herself, Superboy, and Steel. So many characters they could use as side characters. I just think Superman, honestly, they could just replace Supergirl with Superman completely, and not only would I not mind, I would love it. So those are the top 5 Arrowverse spin-off shows that I want to see. To be honest, number 3, 2, and 1 are the only ones that I would really love to see. 4 and 5 I would like to see, but I wouldn't love to see those TV shows. I would love a Superman show, I would love a Deathstroke show, and I would love a legion of superhero shows, and I think the CW is not going to make any of them, but I would love it if they did. So let me know which Arrowverse spin-off shows you would like to see in the comments down below. I'm honestly really intrigued to see what you guys would like to see. Let me know if you would rather a Superman show or a Deathstroke show. Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you like this video, and thanks for watching.